There was no other option, and it was impossible to have the life I wanted. Prince Harry wore his heart on his sleeve last night as he spoke publicly about his sadness at giving up his royal duties. Since his shock announcement, Harry said he and Meghan had hoped to continue serving the Queen without public funding.
The thing is, Prince Harry tried to stay quiet, hiding behind lawyers and PR acting untouchable, but all his 5 appeals got rejected, and now he looks more cornered than ever.
I've grown up feeling supported from so many of you, and I watched as you welcomed Meghan with open arms, as you saw me find the love and happiness that I'd hoped for all my life.
So the whole image Prince Harry built of being this poor, wronged prince just collapsed in front of everyone because 5 quick rejections were not just losses in court, they were proof that his royal privileges were gone, and Parliament did not waste a second. They pushed the removal of his title so fast, showing they had zero patience for his tricks and excuses.
And Ballet's boss says there were mixed emotions at the fundraiser. How is he at the moment?
Well, I think a lot of people will have seen how he is from the speech he gave last night, which is, he's committed to the UK, he's passionate about continuing to support the Queen, and sad also, as you heard, by the way that this kind of complicated affair has ended up in a probably...
So the bill crushed the royal image Harry was holding on to, and as his appeals failed, he got cornered even more. And then came the big shock when Parliament ordered him to pay $500,000 in tax within 2 days, exposing how weak his position really is.
Start with you. Just watching Prince Harry speaking the way he was last night, you could clearly see, obviously very emotional. He said he was sad, and he's done so many speaking engagements, speaks so much, and this, I don't know how many times I've actually heard him stutter.
So for a man used to fancy houses, private jets, and Hollywood-style deals, this tax deadline was a brutal reminder that none of that could save him, because tax rules do not bend, and the public saw it as proof he was no longer untouchable while Parliament made it clear you left your duty, now you pay the price of independence.
Sadness we're all feeling, and I was interested by the way it was presented. It wasn't filmed professionally. It was one of his people had held up an iPhone, and he released it, and that's the way it's going to be in the future.
His appeals were rejected, his titles targeted, and a heavy tax bill dropped, leaving Harry without privilege or respect. And now, instead of a wronged prince, he is simply seen as a man the world has moved on from.
Sort of royal duties and identity. He says he wants a progressive sort of royal functioning.
But it looks like the Queen has said something else.
Well, the Queen has, I think Simon knows more about.
His tone was weak and defensive. He tried to play the victim, but no one believed him, and instead of sympathy, he only showed how far he had fallen.
On his royal title, not title, style. He's going to keep his title, Sussex, but his royal style as HRH, he and Meghan can't use that for a bit. As Robert Hartman just said then, they're sort of on probation so far as that's concerned.
The days of luxury and excuses for Prince Harry were clearly over because the public had lost patience a long time ago. People once thought he just wanted freedom and a fresh start, but instead he kept holding on to his titles when it suited him and asking for perks when it did not. His endless appeals no longer looked like justice. They looked like a spoiled child who just could not take no for an answer.
To still carry out some kind of royal duties. Why do you think the Queen, the palace just chose to quite, you could say, a harsh reaction or offer to Harry and Meghan?
Well, certainly they haven't got the deal that they set out, which is the one that they wanted. They wanted to have...
By the time his last appeal was rejected, nobody was surprised anymore. Instead, people felt relieved because Parliament finally ended the act, and the public quickly decided Harry was just someone who thought rules did not apply to him. But behind the doors of his California mansion, the reality was very different, because even with flashy streaming deals and a life of comfort, the money was not steady enough to cover the expensive lifestyle he and Meghan kept showing off.
The global corporate world and make millions, which is what they've been told by PR gurus both sides of the Atlantic. Now, the Queen, Charles and William, the senior royals who made this decision, told them in no uncertain terms that that wasn't possible. And I think in the video you've just seen that Harry...
The shine of luxury quickly fades when the bills start piling up because mansions need endless upkeep. Private security burns through millions, and private jets are only for the truly rich. Without his royal safety net, Harry's money game began to crack, and that sudden $500,000 tax demand in 2 days exposed it all. A man with real fortune would not even blink. But for him, it showed how shaky his independence was, and the fantasy of being both royal and celebrity fell apart under one deadline.
So I'm going to agree with that. The HRH is interesting. There is definitely a way back for Harry and Meghan on that. So they're not using it, but they are definitely not losing it completely. So there is a way back there.
So what does that mean if there is that way back?
Each rejection and each new demand for money drags Harry closer to the edge. He has long denied existed, and what was once just gossip about his finances is now plain to see. If he fails to meet the tax deadline or cannot handle his commitments, the image of a wealthy prince will shatter in front of everyone. Bankruptcy is no longer a distant threat. It is a real possibility, and Parliament has boxed him in with no escape.
Working in California or wherever they are based, and they want to come back to royal duties. It's hard to see that happening right now, I agree, but everybody's sad. There's a pragmatic attempt to try and make it work. They want Harry to be happy, of course they do, but they couldn't allow this third way between royalty and celebrity.
Taking away his titles weakens his brand, and hitting him with fast financial demands forces him to face the public. And this mix is brutal because it risks tearing down not only his reputation but his future too. And while all this is happening, the royal family has stayed completely quiet. King Charles, Prince William, and the rest, choosing silence, which looks less like apathy and more like a clever move, because by keeping out, they avoid the mess while Parliament does the work for them, and that silence has become the loudest message of all.
Royal title, but that would affect the whole royal family, so that's why they're worried.
Can I just come in there, Simon, and to Matthew? There is another possibility that, Meghan and Harry are very close to the Obamas. The Obamas, the former president and his wife in America, they have a charitable foundation which quite respectably sells t-shirts.
There is no rescue coming for him, no royal shield to hide behind, and no sympathy left to soften the blow, and the silence from the royal family makes that louder than any words could ever be, because it shows they have finally stepped aside completely and decided to let him deal with the wreckage alone for years. Harry tried to push the same story again and again, that he was trapped in a cold, loveless system, forced to abandon his role by an unfeeling family, and he sold this narrative everywhere he could, in interviews, in podcasts, in documentaries, and even in his books, carefully painting himself as a misunderstood prince who only wanted freedom and peace. But the reality is now catching up with him, because one by one his appeals have been rejected. Parliament has refused to give him special treatment, and the truth has started to shine through all those excuses. No longer work. The more he tries to hold on to that story, the more it collapses under its own weight. Instead of being seen as a man standing against an unfair system, he is now seen as a man desperately clinging to privileges he walked away from. And the silence of his family only makes it worse, because it is not indifference. It is strategy. By refusing to speak, they are sending the strongest message possible that they will not step in, they will not shield him, and they will not stand beside him as his image crumbles. And that silence has left him exposed in a way that is both brutal and final, making his downfall play out like a public lesson in consequences with the entire world watching.
A lot of evidence that that is their plan, and they become a sort of, a charitable force in their own right. All these things they've been saying about wanting to bring people together, not divide them, that could prove a way back, or
The world has stopped believing in the fairy tale he tried to sell for so many years. No one sees him as the poor, misunderstood prince trapped in a cruel palace anymore. Now he is seen for what he is, a man who made his own choice to walk away from the crown and duty, but still wanted to hold on to the special treatment that came with it. He wanted to live as a celebrity in California while demanding the respect of royalty in London. He wanted freedom without sacrifice, privilege without service. And when the reality of consequences finally caught up with him, he cried unfair, hoping people would side with him and protect the story he had repeated over and over again. But the sympathy that once shielded him has vanished, because it became clear his fight was never about justice or freedom. It was always about entitlement. Every single appeal he filed was not about standing for what was right. It was about clinging to the perks he walked away from, and Parliament, backed by the voice of the public, finally decided enough was enough. They stripped away his defenses. They rejected his excuses. They cut down the narrative he leaned on for years. And in that moment, the victim story that built his image collapsed completely. That story was the heart of his persona. It was the reason people gave him attention. The reason his interviews, books, podcasts, and documentaries had any impact. He painted himself as the man forced out by a cold family. But now, with every failed appeal and every harsh blow from Parliament, the mask has been torn away and the truth is exposed. He is no longer a misunderstood royal. He is a man caught trying to play both sides, demanding privilege without responsibility, sympathy without honesty. And when that truth became undeniable, the foundation of his public image crumbled, leaving him exposed like never before. Now he has no crown to hide behind, no privilege to lean on, and no family stepping in to rescue him. The silence of the royals speaks louder than anything because it shows they are done with his drama. They will not protect him, they will not shield him, and they will not give him the sympathy he once used as a weapon. And that silence cuts deeper than any headline because it leaves him standing alone facing a world that is tired of excuses and hungry for accountability. And accountability is the one burden he has never carried. Yet, now it is the only thing left for him to face, and the world is watching closely as the prince who once tried to control the narrative is finally crushed under the weight of truth. His fall is no longer just about losing titles or money. It is about losing the story that kept him relevant, and when that story dies, he is left with nothing but the harsh reality of a man undone by his own choices.
It was that they should have had some form of strategy or plan, and they didn't really know or understand what they were getting into. And it seems as certainly the Queen and Charles had told them to hold off putting out any statement, to seek the advice of the senior courtiers, and they didn't want to do that. They were panicking.
Once he was a central figure in one of the most powerful families on earth, carrying the weight of tradition and the glow of royal status, but now he drifts like a man cut loose with no real place to belong, stripped of the titles that once defined him, stripped of the protections that once shielded him, and pressed down by financial burdens that grow heavier each day. Harry has become what he once feared most, a man without any anchor. His identity used to be built on duty, service, and loyalty to the crown, but when he turned away from that, he tried to rebuild himself through Hollywood deals, glitzy appearances, and the shallow stage of celebrity culture. Yet celebrity is fragile. Its shine fades quickly, and Hollywood has no patience for weakness or for figures who no longer command admiration without the steady ground of royal duty to hold him up. And without the loyalty of a public that once cheered for him, he has slipped into a strange in-between world. He is too far from the monarchy to be embraced as a true royal, yet too proud and entitled to fully succeed as an ordinary celebrity. This leaves him in a lonely middle ground, floating between two identities but belonging to neither. And the longer he remains in this state, the weaker his relevance becomes. The more his influence fades, until the image he worked so hard to protect is nothing but fragments. And as the world watches this slow unraveling, it is clear that his downfall is not only about losing titles or wealth, it is about losing his very sense of self. Because without duty to give him purpose, without a crown to give him weight, and without responsibility to hold him steady, he is left as a figure slowly slipping from importance, remembered less for what he stood for and more for how he lost his way. So babe, if you're loving all this juicy royal drama and want even more tea, Jacob Reports has you covered. So don't just sit there, hit that follow, stick around, and get ready, because the gossip only gets hotter, and trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.